Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and open up the common council meeting on June 28th at 7 p.m. Could we please rise for the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Carol, let's start off with roll call, please.
Steve Beardsley,
Present.
Mike Bright, Brant Fuller,
Present.
Joe Palmer,
Present.
Megan Sheets, Clarence Worthen,
Present.
Eric Woods.
Present.
Okay, next on the agenda are the minutes from June 14th, 2021, and that was a regular meeting. Any comments or questions or anything on that?
Move acceptance of the minutes.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please, Carol.
Steve Beardsley,
Aye.
Mike Bright,
Aye.
Brant Fuller,
Aye.
Joe Palmer,
Aye.
Megan Sheets, Clarence Worthen,
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Aye.
Okay, did we have any public comments, Scott? None? Okay. We'll move on then to ordinance number 21-09, first reading. Could I have a motion to either read it by title only
Make a
or
motion, we read it by title only. So
roll call, please?
Steve Beardsley,
Aye.
Mike Bright,
Aye.
Brant Fuller,
Aye.
Joe Palmer,
Aye.
Megan Sheets, Clarence Worthen,
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Aye.
Additional appropriation ordinance number 21-09.
Carol, do you want to tell us about that additional appropriation, or I can talk about it, whichever. Are you okay with that?
Sure. This is a request to use $200,000 of the CARES Act money that we received last fall for paving projects, which we would be able to receive a matching grant from the state through the CCMG program. So it would translate into $400,000 if that's what happens with it.
And then as Jason said earlier in our Board of Works meeting, that's going to be $920,000 that the city would be able to use this year for paving if we get the CCMG grant. I think that's really great for our city. It's something that we need to do. It's something that's really important, and I appreciate the council considering doing an additional appropriation for that. Tonight, we would pass it on first reading. Then the next meeting, we'll have to have a public hearing along with, it can be passed on second or second and third at the next meeting. So is there any questions?
Do we already have that grant? Or do
No.
we have to apply for that grant?
Right, and Jason, what's the dates on that again?
July 5th to July 31st.
So the month of July, pretty much, that we will apply for
But he
that.
has to have it, his half when he applies, is that correct? You have to have your half, or at least what you want to match?
You have to have a written letter from the mayor saying that you'll get a certain amount.
Okay.
Is that in reference to?
Yes, and then we can either talk about those right now, or if you want to go ahead and pass this ordinance on first reading, which do you prefer?
I'll make a motion to pass ordinance 2109 on first reading. Second.
She hasn't read it by title only yet.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
I did read it.
I think she
short.
did.
It's short.
First thing goes about mine, so.
I thought you did.
I heard Megan on that second.
Okay. Yeah, Eric and then Megan.
It's a helium.
Okay, ready for roll call?
Yes.
Roll call, Steve Beardsley,
Aye.
Mike Bright,
Aye.
Brant Fuller,
Aye.
Joe Palmer,
Aye.
Megan Sheets, Clarence Worthen,
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Aye.
Jason, do you want to talk to us just for a few minutes, a little bit after what we talked about at the meeting the other day on the streets that we're looking at?
You should all have a copy of the page he's going to reference. If you don't, I have an extra copy here.
Page 1 is what he had first come up with, and then if you go ahead and look at page 2, that's some changes that we made.
I think you all are aware, normally what we do every year is kind of throw out some projects on what we think might need to be done with the Board of Works, the Councilman Committee for the street, and others. Obviously, we look at the utilities, check with utilities, sewer, water, see what their projects are going to be to keep, the best we can to keep from cutting up a brand new street. I did that. I reached out to Hensley at Waterworks and Jim Spears at Sewer Department. They gave me some feedback in reference to these 22 projects you see on here on the first page, which come up to about 1.19 million. As the mayor said earlier, we have around 920. We do have 920,000 if you continue to pass that the extra $200,000. That second page. Obviously, Washington Street, Clinton Street is marked out. And at the very end, in project 23 there, you'll see a 28,644 number. That's basically what we would have left. So we're going to be searching for another project within that same realm or that same amount. So, to be able to do, I guess I said earlier, 21, but actually with the 2 marked out, we'll be able to do, 21, I guess, 21 projects. Once we decide what we want to do with the other 28,000, obviously we want to utilize all that we can. So I appreciate you passing on first reading. Like I said, go down through some of these. Monon Street, I'm sure you're all aware of that. It's next to Winsky's. That street's definitely needed done for a long time, or not a long time. It's been done recently, but it wasn't done correctly. Williams Road, from basically Walnut to Forest Drive, we're always down there patching. We take a lot of things into consideration. I know Megan drove around and looked at a lot of different things. Joe always does. Steve gave me some feedback, so I appreciate that. Vermont Street in front of Indiana Packers has been a street. Chris Northington, the plant manager, reached out to me, and they've been looking at something like that. We're over there quite a bit. I don't know when the last time that was done. Just looking at Harrison Street, number 16, would kind of give you an idea of what we might be looking for with that last 28,000. They're obviously about the same price. So they'll probably be about the same quote. Outer Drive, we haven't done a lot out in National Homes lately. So get some things done out there. 4th Street, I'm sure Eric has driven 4th Street a few times, being over there by Schultz. Both Short 4th and 4th are in really bad shape. 7th Street around to East McClurg is a bad stretch from Washington Avenue all the way around. And then I'm sure you noticed we kind of looked at, we obviously have McKinley Avenue on there, but we looked at some of those small Short Myrtle, Boomer, Nickel Plate off of McKinley. Those are roads that kind of like Boomer did. We did a few years ago with Boomer Street. Once you do those, you don't have to do those for quite a while. Again, they're not heavily traveled, and they're pretty cheap to be able to pave. And obviously will help in how close they are to each other. As far as what the quotes might come in at. So whole idea is to, like I said, be ready July 5th, go through the grant process, get all the information we need, get that taken care of before the 31st. And then while we were waiting on NDOT, which I don't know when that'd be, I assume if it's similar to what we did last year, we'll get information back within a month or so. And then that'll get us to where we can start moving on getting bids out. I'll work with Les on that to get that taken care of like we do every year. And hopefully sometime in October, we can pave. That's the game plan. I think it worked out really well last year. There's 2 calls, CCMG now. There used to be only 1. Now there's 2. I'd like to go with the second one and be able to pave later in the year in October and the fall. A little cooler out then. So we'll see. Like I said, we've had really good luck in the past with community crossings. We have a lot of projects on here that link with old projects, link with some of the first projects we did with community crossings. Hawthorne was off Barner Street. Barner was one of our first community crossing projects we did all the way through town. So, some things in relation to the park, or parks, a lot of different projects on here. But I think we all, we sit down, we thought about it, we talked it over, and I think everyone had a good conversation. So I appreciate everyone involved.
Jason, could you also share in our councilman committee the discussion you referenced, the Washington Street and Clinton Street, the rationale why those were crossed off?
Yeah, Washington Clinton Street's been on our list on and off over the past, but obviously with Washington Avenue being worked on right now, the Washington Street is the designated detour for Washington Avenue. So we're getting a lot of truck traffic down through there. And then obviously Clinton Street is the same way. With 28 being worked on, that's been the main thoroughfare. Unfortunately, that's what a lot of the trucks are using. It's not what we asked them to use, but they've been using it. So those two projects, going east, with this particular Clinton Street, or going west, hopefully we can work on getting Clinton Street and Washington Street taken care of in the near future. But I hate to do it, turn around, have heavy truck traffic on it, because we've all seen what heavy truck traffic can do. I'm sure the utilities have been dealing with it. We've had some water main breaks due to heavy truck traffic. It's going to break them down pretty quick, and I think it's best that we keep those set aside. And then once we pave those, and 28's done next year, 28, Clinton, Washington, and Washington Avenue will all be done from the middle of town all the way out to the high school. And so I think it's just best to keep those out. I know we're probably going to have some upset people on that, but I think it's the best use of the city's funds for now. Before we took that off of there, Washington Street would cost about $230,000 by itself just to pave. And that's one thing I've tried to stress on the radio and in the past is infrastructure is needed in our community. We've made a lot of positive steps, but I don't think people understand the cost of rebuilding your infrastructure. And so far, thankfully, with what Scott's dealing with police department, what Bart's dealing with, the swimming pool, it hasn't affected asphalt prices. So the asphalt prices are still pretty good shape. And I think you'll see that the numbers you see here will be what we see pretty close when we go out to bid. So.
Does anybody have any questions,
One-
comments, or anything?
One question,
Yes.
just out of curiosity, Jason, the extra money, can any of that be used for curbing? Is curbing considered? And the reason I ask is because there's some decent streets, but they look terrible because there's no curbs.
Well, the unfortunate thing with curbing, and it's funny you asked, Mike, it was one of the first few questions I ever took when I became street superintendent is, yeah, you're right, curbing is that way, but it'll always be that way unless you replace it, because anytime you go in and mill and put a certain amount back, right, you're going to lose your curbing. I agree, it does look a lot nicer. Can it be used? I want to say that it cannot, but I'm not sure.
And even if it could, there's probably more to it than just putting a curb down.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're talking about a lot of money. And I guess my question, my response to that is, and what it was 6 years ago and what it is today is, if you spend it on curb, you don't spend it on the road.
Yeah.
And we don't drive on the curbs. We drive on the road, and some people anyway. But yeah, I think that was my answer 6 years ago, and I think it is today. It's just difficult to take $100,000 and put it on curbing in a certain area and then lose out what you're getting.
Sure. Okay. Thanks, Jason.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Jason, for all your work on it. I know you've worked hard to come up with these three that we paid. So next on the agenda is ordinance number 21-10, and I believe that's the one that the copies that you received in your packets, right? That say 20-10.
That is correct. It is listed correctly on
Listed
the
correctly
agenda.
on the agenda, but in your packet, had a typo on it, and it says 20-10.
I will send out updated copies of those tomorrow.
And I would entertain a motion to read this by title or its entirety.
Make a motion to read ordinance 21-10 by title only.
I'll second.
Roll call, please, Carol.
Steve Beardsley.
Aye.
Mike Bright.
Aye.
Brant Fuller.
Aye.
Joe Palmer.
Aye.
Megan Sheets. Clarence Worthen.
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Aye.
Okay.
Ready to read by title? Ordinance number 21-10, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the city of Frankfort to rezone certain real estate.
Would anyone like to make a motion to pass ordinance 21-10 on first reading?
So moved.
Second.
And before we do the roll call on that, is there any discussion, comments, anything that we need to talk about on this? I think Jeremy Duff's here tonight as part of that project.
Mayor, I might make a few preliminary remarks. This is the real estate that was comprised with the old Riley School and the first Riley addition, which consists of the old Robaugh football field, and there were 20 lots with some vacated alleys and a vacated street in there. And this has gone through the Plan Commission and received favorable approval. There should have been in your packet, I think, the Plan Commission's resolution. And notice went out to everyone that owned property within 100 feet of the perimeter of this real estate, and also was published in the Times. And the Plan Commission approved its resolution unanimously. The zoning would be for residential B, a single-family dwelling. The lots are still platted actually on the Robaugh Field site, although the alleys and the street have been vacated. And Jeremy Duff is here to answer any questions. I think Don's here too, hiding behind Jeremy back there. So.
I just have one question. Is Young Street going to be put back in? Will just be absorbed by those lots?
The houses are gonna line up on either side, is that correct? Wabash and
Correct, yes. The home
south, and then it's gonna have an alley at the back of the homes.
Right. Continuous alley from east to west, all the homes would face north or south.
And you're planning to use the area where the school actually was?
Correct.
Yes, okay.
Jeremy, that alley will need to be rededicated.
Correct. Yes. Plan to do that as part of the subdivision.
Jeremy, how wide are those lots down there?
All of them are over 50. Most of the existing ones are some odd numbers like 52 and 53 feet. The 20 that Les mentioned are existing.
And how deep are they?
Approximately 150 feet. It's a pretty deep site. Those, even with the center alley, those sites would all be deeper than any of the properties across Wabash or across South Street. So it's a generously deep site. The minimum lot width for residential B is 50. So all
Okay,
those ones
so-
still comply with the current.
So you're saying they're about 52, 53 feet?
Yep.
Okay, just a question. Don't they have to have a 5-foot setback off of the property line for the building?
Yes.
Okay, so
You're looking at
so that's 5 foot on both sides?
40-foot wide homes.
Yeah, so about 40 feet. Be about maximum
Yes.
length of a home or width of a home. And they could go deeper.
Absolutely, yes. And planning on detached garages, access off the alley, so all the parking would actually be in the rear.
Okay,
So,
I'm just trying to wrap my mind around this.
yeah. very similar to most of the surrounding properties. You do find some there that actually do have a driveway kind of maybe shared by two homes that access the driveway from the front, but these would all, you would only have sidewalk access to the front door from the streets, and all the driveways would be off the alley.
So this little map that we have, or picture drawing, is that the number of lots?
Yes, so 20 are already parceled from back in 1927. There'll be 2 more that take the place of what was originally targeted as Young Street, and then additional ones on the school site around the west. So the total of 34 lots.
I wouldn't either, but
These are gonna have, new sidewalks on the street side.
Yes. There are existing sidewalks, but I'm pretty certain by the time construction happens, they will become new. They're not in great shape.
is there any other questions? Comments? Okay, we're ready for a roll call, Carol.
Steve Beardsley.
Aye.
Mike Bright.
Aye.
Grant Fuller.
Aye.
Joe Palmer.
Aye.
Megan Sheets.
Aye.
Clarence Worthen.
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Aye.
Okay, ordinance 21-10 passes on first reading. Next on the agenda, we have old business. I'd ask Bart Cranning to talk to us tonight a little bit about the pool. We're trying to get this set up as to what direction to go and what we can do to bring back to you as the council. And another thing, we haven't gotten there yet, but I was gonna ask, if there is gonna be a work session in July, it might be a time for us to even discuss this further, or may have some more information. But Bart, you might tell them what we've talked about so far.
Sure. So we met with the architects, a few of the construction guys, a lot of guys that work for the people that design the lot. And they've been gathering preliminary pricing on all kinds of things. They gave us a plan that says these are what is in the bid or will be in the bid. This is what's going to be an alternate in the bid. One of the things that we needed to change was which unfortunately no one's going to be happy about it, but with all the, especially, what happened with the police department becoming, very expensive. The first big cut that's probably going to need to happen is the lap pool. So basically, we took that originally from about 1.4 million down to about 380,000 for the lap pool, just by changing the lanes. I'm sorry, that was the concession stand. I don't know the exact difference in the prices from taking the lanes out. But it's for the lap pool alone is about $1.3 million. And with us already being at what they're projecting to be over $10 million, then we really have no room at all to keep that in there. So your options is if you go back and you look at alternates, if you're talking about water features strictly, they go from about 100,000 up to about 300,000 for the water features, which are the climbing nets, the playground equipment, the things that are on the center aisle, the island that's going to be in the middle of the lazy river, those things. So your most expensive ticket item for that is about 300,000, whereas the lap pool is well over $1 million. The difference that they explained to us is if you were to take out water features, traditionally the infrastructure will not be the same later on. Whereas the lap pool, removing that, the infrastructure would be the same. The piping would be the same, everything would be there, the mechanical room is the same. Basically, what they suggest is that we already take a hard look at removing that because they don't think it's going to be possible with our current budget. So what they've done, what the next steps are, is them to come back to us and say, these are, basically a hardcore estimate. This is the exact plan with your alternates, because we have a preliminary one right now that I can send to anyone if you guys want to look at it. But the way that he was making it sound was that the easiest option is to cut the lap pool. He did include that when they did the questioning of Frankfurt, the citizens of Frankfurt, a lap pool was not on the list. It wasn't one of them that made the top list. So I know there's, a mindset that everyone wants to have a lap pool, but in reality, when they did the information gathering, that was not on the list. So we were thinking that's probably where we start, rather than cutting smaller features to add up to, over $1 million. Then that's one of the big items. There still will be an area to swim. There just won't be a diving board. There won't be that extra slide that goes down into that area. Now, like I said, the infrastructure, even the slide, could still happen. It just has to exit into the open swim area rather than the lap pool. And that's not guaranteed, but he just made it very clear to us during this past meeting that's a realistic possibility.
Bert, you said lap pool wasn't high on that priority list, but I believe diving was.
Diving it was on the list. I think it was like 7 or 8. So there is a chance to still get diving. There is a climbing area on the south side of the property. What they have for that now, it's a deeper part of the pool, and they have basically these flotation devices with a net over the top. And kids hang on the net and they walk across that. He did say we can convert that into a deep end and still do diving. So there is an option to still get diving into there, but that will at least solve that problem.
Would that solve this slide problem if they have a deep end there?
No. Unfortunately, the drop slide is out of the question. Yeah. So the drop slide, you have to have a certain amount of clearance that they would not have in the open swim area. So the smaller one, that's one that they can change and terminate into the open, because there originally was going to be 2 that terminated into the lap swim. If we want to keep the big slide, one of the big ones, then we would have to have it into that open swim area. He also says that having you'll still have the big slide that has the raft that goes right into the lazy river, so that wouldn't mess with it at all. You keep that. So.
And there's the potential to add the lap pool earlier.
Absolutely. What he suggests is you put picnic tables there. You don't drill into your concrete. You don't mess with anything at all. You just leave that as a even rentable area if you want to do that for now. Put more cabanas if that's in the money, or just picnic tables where people can just go and sit down and rest, or it's an eating area. But he doesn't suggest changing any piping, changing anything in the mechanical room, keeping all that the same so you can expand on the project at a future date.
And as you said, Bart, we're gonna do this a little different than like with the police department. There's gonna be a base bid and then add alternates. So we would keep that as an alternate, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and some other things that would be an alternate if that's something that we want to do. And that's the way it would bid out. It would bid out as base, and then they could bid on those. Something that I would like to do, but I don't know if the council wants to or not, is I'd like to have Kyle come and speak to the council and give us some ideas, talk to us about it. I mean, this is huge, and it's a lot different than what we thought in the beginning on this pool of what we could afford, not afford. And of course, the cost of materials and not so much labor, but materials. So usually in July, I think it is the second meeting, we have a work session, if anybody would be interested, or I can just have him come to a regular meeting. But this is a pretty big decision. I mean, we're talking, $10 million project, and we want to make sure that right decisions are made and that people are happy with what we're doing at the cost. And so, but I'm open for suggestions on that as well.
Does the timeline allow us to meet on July 26th on this and then start making big decisions and still make a 2023 opening?
We were not even going to bid this out till September, October anyway. And so that would still, I feel, would keep us on that timeline for 2023.
Their goal is to send it to bid September 28th.
Yeah.
So they want to finish up the construction documents officially on August 28th and then take 4 weeks to get ready to send it
Because
out.
the reason why we could do the 2022 is because it was going to be so late in the season. It was probably going to be August, September. So you still have a few months in there, and you would still be able to get the 2023 opening.
Yeah, and their goal is to, what they want to put in there is that they start in March at the latest. If they bid it out and it comes back in October, then great. But what they want to put into the bids is that you will start March. So that gives them a full year plus a couple months to make sure that in 2023 we're open and ready to go.
I think the work session in July, I mean, I really don't think we gotta keep moving forward with it. We owe that to the public. So I think it's a no-brainer that we gotta meet and keep moving.
But we definitely need the council's support on this as well.
I have a question, Bart. Now, you're talking about the lap pool being gone. I know the last time we talked, you talked about moving from an 8-lane to 4-lane or whatever.
6 and 4.
Now we're talking about eliminating it completely.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, just to add it at a later date,
Good.
Everything infrastructure wise will be the same, but yeah, they do not think we will have enough money to add a
Yeah,
lot.
I understand that. Now, was that pool separate from the other swimming area anyway, or it wasn't tied together?
Correct. It's all by itself, and there would have been a climbing wall and a drop slide that.
Yeah, that went into that. Okay. Yeah, I think the work session was,
Okay. Carol, let's go ahead and put that down on the work session in July. Can you get a hold of Kyle and see if he can be here? Okay. Yeah. Because I want to make sure, that all of us have the opportunity to have input and make sure that we make good decisions on this. Like I said, this is huge. We have to make sure that we're doing the right thing. Hopefully, materials will keep going down, but as we all know, it's not happening very quickly.
it's starting to come back down now.
Yeah,
It's still a lot higher than once, that's for sure.
so, okay, all right, sounds good. Laura. Tomorrow, we have a finance committee meeting, with Scott. And, who else will be there? Jeremy? Is Jeremy gonna be there? Les, to discuss the police station again and see where to go from there. We've had a lot of discussions, a lot of emails back and forth. As you know, it's about 2 million over, 2.5 million over what we had hoped for. So some decisions will have to be made. So, Scott, did you have anything you wanted to say tonight?
Jeremy and I met, we've been on the phone daily. We've made some cuts to the project that we feel that we can continue. The issue is going to be, we really don't want to rebid this project. We don't feel like we'll get the cost savings that we have now. We've been transparent. We had a public bid. We talked to the low bidder. The board has not made a decision yet. The bids have remained tabled, but we rebidding it now. I think the materials for steel are remaining consistent. I think we said 7% of our building, so it's really not a cost savings for us to wait any longer on steel because it's not as big part of the project as we had thought. So tomorrow we're just going to bring a proposal to the council and the mayor. We've talked to Gary Smith, or Reedy, right? Gary Smith. And we've been working with Les. We're just hoping to bring something to you in a couple weeks, our next meeting. Hopefully break some ground. If not, we'll have to rebid, and maybe we're talking about 2 to 3 months, I think. And we're, everybody's concerned about another, increase in COVID later this fall. We really just want to try to lock in prices now. The longer we wait, it's been since 2018. I think we found that waiting doesn't help. So just put that out there, and we'll be back in the next meeting with hopefully a proposal.
Sounds good. Does anybody have anything for Scott or any comments? Like I said, it's pretty disappointing. I mean, I'm not surprised, but disappointed that we're over by that much, but Scott's working hard, aren't you? Doing a lot of emailing and phone conversations. Does anybody have anything else under old business? Next on the agenda is new business. The township fire contracts have never come before the council before, but, I'm gonna have Les explain that to you, but he came up with that probably they should, correct? Les, they need to come before just for their.
Yeah, we should get the council's consent on all of these. I think the one for Washington Township, did come up before when we did the annexation. That's not the complete township. Most of Washington Township uses, Mulberry, Fire Service. So anyway, that was, up for renewal as well. And that's 1 year. I think 2 of these are for 2 years. Is that correct, John?
Yeah.
And 2 of them are for 1 year.
Yes.
They all have peculiarities in each of them, but they're essentially the same contracts that we've done for the townships for the past several years, with I think an increase in the amounts being paid.
And about 8-9% increase
Yeah.
for each amount.
So,
That's the difference.
yeah, the Board of Works has approved all of them, and we just wanted to run it by the council for its consent.
John, do you want to talk a little bit about the increase and, what we, I don't think I have a copy of that. That shows how we came up with the difference or the difference from the previous years. Do you have that with you?
Yeah, and from 2021, Jackson Township and Union Township are at about a 9% increase. And, you know, they're at their max levy, really. It's about as high as we could get them. Washington Township, they did petition for a fire cum fund for this year, but it hasn't came back yet. So we weren't able to dip into that at all, like we have in the other 2 townships. But they're gonna do a 10.5% increase from a year ago, and they're the 1-year contract. The 2-year contract is just a preference that the township trustees for Jackson Union, they prefer a 2-year contract. They're elderly, that way I think it's just easier on them to go 2 years. So that's kind of what we've been doing for the past several years with those 2 townships. But Center Township and Washington Township, they prefer the 1-year contract. Center Township is at $93,436.80 this year, which is the same as last year. The 2 years prior to that, they were at $80,000.
And we're still asking the townships for part of the fire.
Yeah,
cum.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now Jackson and Union are they're going to be giving $16,000, and Jackson will be out of their fire cum, which helps, you know, for equipment of that nature of the fire department, which gives a relief on our general budget. And Union's $10,000, and Center Township, I mean, they're really good about helping us when we need, you know, money. They put roofs on our stations the past few years. You know, they're willing to, we're going to be trying to remodel Station 2 and Station 3, its bathroom and kitchen. And they're willing to help out with Station 2, which is going to give us some relief out of our budget as well. So they're all pretty good to work with, actually.
And like you said, I think it was this year, the first time we did the fire cum, correct? And we checked with DLGF, and that's okay. They don't have
As
to
long
do it.
as you list it as
Yeah,
you're getting that for equipment.
equipment. So that'll just go into city general with the fire contract. And then as we budget out of city general for the fire.
I mean, Jackson Township next year will be giving around $56,000 with fire cum and added to that, and Union's at $45,000. So
Is there any questions or comments or anything? Fire contracts?
It's a lot more than it used to be.
Yes, it is.
One time we only charged like $3,000 a year.
So,
things have changed, John.
well, and then when we found out that we could get some of their fire cum, well, actually, we're getting their fire cum. That's helped us a lot, so.
John, how many square miles roughly does Frankfurt Fire cover, including all these townships?
98 square miles,
Which Frankfurt City proper, more than 25?
which this, and actually this next year, that increases a little bit because we're going to be covering NHK on 65.
The point I'd like to make, first of all, I think these are signed, that's fine. I know we've got a whole lot more. But as we start looking towards what's going to be required of our fire service annexing out past 65, I think we really ought to consider what is fair for a township to pay for the same service that a Frankfurt City residence gets. I know I sound like a broken record on this, but our fire service is roughly sized to cover 90 square miles. Frankfurt's roughly 25, gonna be more. We try to territory, I don't even know if that's still legal, but I think as we approach, this new gain in our city size, we really ought to consider what our options are over the next couple of years. So, I favor go ahead and get these taken care of now before we get into other agreements with these townships. We just appreciate it if we could really sit down and talk about what's doable. And I know by law, you can only hit them for their max levy, all right?
And they're at their max levy. We've asked them to do their max
That's
levy.
what we dipped into the,
And we,
yeah,
and we, right, and we asked them to set up Fire Cuma,
and
Washington,
made
right?
this,
Yeah, we've asked them to do that and then asked them to give that to us to help towards equipment, so.
Or there just becomes a level of subsidy that can be overwhelming. And as we talk about a new station and 6 new men and things like that, I think it's maybe relevant in the next 2 years when we hit this subject hard again. But I appreciate that it's gone up.
Yes.
it has quite a bit since 2012 when I became fire chief. It's grown a lot.
Good job, Billy.
I can't remember. I can't remember what they did, probably, can you remember that? You said 12, do you remember what they were paying then?
Yeah, probably about 13, 14.
That's what I was gonna say, I was gonna say 9, but,
In 2010, the Frankfurt City rate was 64 cents, and the Jackson Township rate was 3 cents.
Yeah.
I assume that's probably up around 10 or 12 cents now.
Yeah.
It's tripled, maybe quadrupled.
we've come a long ways. But that's why they did with the fire district too, so
Yeah,
they wanna pay those extra taxes. So what, do we just need to ask them to approve it, or just get, what do you suggest?
Just a motion to approve the fire contracts. You can do all of them with one motion, or if you have reservations on any of them, you can do them separately.
I'll make a motion, we accept the 4 township contracts.
I'll second that.
Roll call please, Carol.
Steve Beardsley.
Aye.
Mike Wright.
Aye.
Brant Fuller.
Aye.
Joe Palmer.
Aye.
Megan Sheets.
Aye.
Clarence Worthen.
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, John. Appreciate it. Does anyone have anything else tonight?
I think I'll be setting a date for the budget hearings. We're just a little over a month away from that, and schedules are gonna start filling.
See what we usually do, middle.
Usually about
First and middle of
first week of August or second week of August.
Tell you the one.
Yeah, like,
So we'll have a meeting, our meetings in August will be the 9th and the 23rd. If that makes any difference to any of you. So I do it in the same week as a meeting, would that work better for you? That would be the 10th, 11th, 12th, or 13th. Or Tuesday through Friday.
I think what we've been doing is like scheduling 2 days, and if we can get through it in one, we get through it in one, but that way we have it available. So like maybe Wednesday, Thursday, or Tuesday, Wednesday.
I favor Tuesday, Wednesday. Personally, I'll be out of town the 12th and 15th.
Tuesday, Wednesday work for others.
Could we do the 10th and the 11th, Tuesday and Wednesday?
It does, the 11th is important, we're planning, but obviously that could be suspended if we needed that day.
I'm sure we'll get it done in
We're
one
talking
day.
August.
We've been
We're
getting,
trying really hard to get that done.
yeah, we've been getting it done in one day, but it's nice to have it available in case
Right.
we need it.
10 to 11,
We're talking the 10th and 11th.
yes,
Of August?
yes.
Tuesday, August 10th, Wednesday, August 11th.
What time we gonna start? 8, 9, 7? What are we going
We
to?
can start at 6.
6, well,
Get it all done one day.
6 P.M.? 6 a.m.
yeah. You want to start it, I think we started before at 8, haven't we? 8, and then Carol, do you want to get a schedule together for us?
Yes, I will be glad to do that.
Now, this year, do you want to have anybody like, Main Street or, who else did we used to have? Paul Philippi?
You know, I'd say if they're requesting any more money, it certainly should come with a narrative.
I think last year we did not, did we? We got, yeah, yeah.
I think the finance committee, did you look at the nonprofit things?
He is.
Well, I think we pretty well, we suggest suspending that at least for the current budget year. I think that'll probably come up.
Not-for-profits.
Oh, yeah, not for profits.
And I think that the discussion's kind of gone toward, that as a municipality, we're not crazy about picking winners of not-for-profits. Every not-for-profit in this county has some valid purpose for exist, or they wouldn't exist. More of a, are you providing a service that the city might otherwise have to? For instance, Paul Philippi's providing public transportation. That's a traditional service of a community. That we can justify that we're buying a service from them and that they're the best provider of it. But to just give a donation to somebody, every single not-for-profit in this community has worth.
Brant just brought up, Commons. Are you interested in Jesse? You're here. You're here.
Would that be a presentation to Board of Works rather than a budget review?
Probably a good starting place.
Board of Works, okay.
Even if during a planning meeting?
Yeah, we need to do that.
Have they approached the RDC this year for them?
Well, I kind of heard in a roundabout way, maybe, for golf carts.
You heard anything?
They haven't actually approached us.
Well, it was mentioned to me that they might, that you might be an REC thing, is golf carts, because that's gonna be a major expense.
Can we just buy 40 new golf carts for our golf?
Batteries.
We bought batteries. I don't know when the last golf carts were bought.
It's been a while.
Well, Brent had suggested a golf committee meeting. Maybe we could do that with you.
Oh, okay,
Maybe we
that
could
would be good.
merge that in with the Board of Works planning or something.
Maybe we can do that all at once. Let's see, you, Brant, Todd. Yes. Put that down. We'll get that together and try to plan that on and Jesse. When we have a Board of Works planning session. This is kind of-
Do a presentation or.
If they want everything to remain the same, I think we're okay. Don't you on the Paul Philippi? If everything's gonna remain the same.
I'll let her know.
Yeah, unless she was wanting something specific. Is there anything else? Okay, I'll take a motion to
So
adjourn.
moved.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming tonight.
Yeah. I was wondering who was my bad.